For 10 years, they just called him the gardener. But when the day came, the owner of the mansion was left on the street without a penny. My name is Ethan Cole. I'm 58 years old, born in Georgia, raised in Alabama. I've been digging in the dirt, planting flowers, trimming trees. For 10 years, I was a gardener at the estate of the richest man in Florida, Mr. Richard Stein. I showed up every morning at 6 till. They wouldn't look at me. They didn't call me Ethan. They called me the guy who mows the lawn. I never complained. But one day, something that happened in that house changed everything. Mr. Stein's son Derek called me directly for the first time that day. His voice came from above, from the balcony railings. "Hey, clean out that storage room. Dad is looking for the wheat machine." He was looking at his cell phone even as he walked. We did not make eye contact. The warehouse was a dusty room at the back of the mansion, almost never entered. I usually only looked outside, but this time I was inside. A mouse skittered past. There were old files, rusty tin cans, rolls of carpet. But then, a white folder lay open, half slumped on the floor. Personnel, E. Cole. I picked it up, not with curiosity, but with intuition. The documents inside began to fall out one by one in my trembling hands. A lump sat in my throat as I turned the pages. Payment records belonging to me. It was like a defense file about me to be presented in a court of law. But most frightening were the comparative salary schedules. My monthly salary, $3,000. Pay reported to the company, $7,500. Every month, the $4,500 in the gap quietly evaporated. I looked at the insurance documents. None of them had been processed. My pension contributions, my tax records, either missing or falsified. For 10 years they told me, "You're like family, Ethan." Turns out they didn't see me as family. They saw me as a slave. On the way home that night, even the ground beneath my feet felt foreign to me. Because I hadn't just been scammed, I didn't feel like a human being. Early the next morning I went to see Mr. Stein. He was spinning a golf ball under the giant oak tree in the garden. I approached in a calm voice. "Mr. Stein, I think there is something wrong with the salary." He didn't look up, he smiled. He took a step closer. He put his hand on my shoulder, and he looked me in the eye and said that sentence. "You're like a slave working for us, Ethan, and that's how you will remain." At that moment, time stopped. She waited for an expression on my face, but I had no expression. No anger, no surprise, just silence. It was as if a door inside me closed at that moment. I was no longer a gardener. I was the seed of a plan. I turned around. I walked slowly, but under that grass it was no longer just water, but the roots of revenge had begun to grow. From that moment on, I was someone else. I looked just like Ethan. I wore the same overalls, carried the same manure, hooked up the same hoses, but inside me, a fire had started. A quiet, controlled, but unstoppable fire. Mr. Stein's estate sprawled over 3 acres of land, a security booth at the entrance, a huge garage at the back, an office building on the left side, and that stone mansion in the middle. Everything expensive, everything sterile, but rotten inside. I was just the gardener there. But for 10 years, I read people the way I read the land. Who was standing where when they came in? Which computer was on in which room? Derek's phone passwords. It was all in my mind. And now, this information was no longer just to do my job well, but to get justice back. The first thing I did was observe. I tested the angle of the cameras with my night flashlight. From the monitors in the gardener's shed, I learned which sections were dead spots. I noted the hours Mr. Stein was in and out of his office, which nights he slept early, which weeks he met with outside investors. Derek went to parties every weekend. He started his Lamborghini at 7:30 every Friday. It would take him until 3 in the morning to get back. The mansion would be empty at that time. That's when I was there, like watering the garden. My master plan was to get access to the company documents, but I had to do it as an insider, not an outsider. Derek's office is upstairs in the west wing of the house. It's a space that doesn't belong to me, but he always left the door open because he didn't see me as a threat. But I wasn't just an employee anymore. I was a shadow. One day I extended the watering hose to the west window. The post-its that caught my eye as I passed by had Derek's email address and a partial password, WildHorse89. I made a note of it right then. I went home at night and tried to log into the system remotely, guessing that password. And bingo, Derek's company account was open. Inside, forged documents, money transfers, and special formulas used to trick employees. Now, I wasn't just plotting, I was gathering evidence. I backed up different folders every night with my flash drive. But if I had done it alone, it would have been just a complaint. I wanted to stage a coup. My plan had to be big, irreversible. It had to pay for the damage they had done to me. I also realized that I was not alone. One day, a young woman who worked in accounting, April, brought me tea. She looked me in the eye, and she just whispered, "Are they underpaying you too?" I didn't say anything, but when my hand hit hers, I left a little note in her pocket. "Tonight, 22 at the walnut tree in the garden." And that night, there were two other people in the garden, April and a cleaning lady. Both of them had been underpaid for years, their dreams of retirement stolen. I was no longer alone. We were in a cell now. Everything was ready. The date, June 15th, the day of Mr. Stein's big gala with the investors. People from the media would come. Hundreds of people would pour into the mansion that night. From the outside, everything looked luxurious, immaculate, and opulent. But on the inside, we had a revenge plan that worked like clockwork. Derek's laptop was on while I was mowing the lawn. I plugged in the USB drive. With the virus, all the records started sharing themselves. The documents were sent to the media, the labor board, the IRS all at the same time. April was in the lounge serving drinks to investors, smiling, but the watch on her wrist was the trigger. At 9:45 p.m., a message appeared on every screen in the mansion. "For 10 years you have used us like slaves. Now we are making our voices heard." And then, every screen, every phone, every television began to show the documents one by one. The guests fell silent. Investors stood up, and Mr. Stein's life was shattered before his very eyes. There was a restlessness in the mansion that morning. It was as if even the walls had noticed Ethan's silence. While everyone else was smiling, he was just walking, quietly. But the storm inside him, it wouldn't stop. That morning, Ethan went up to Mr. Stein's room. He knocked on the door and walked in. Mr. Stein at the desk, his son Derek beside him, the family lawyer behind them. Ethan put the thick file down on the table. He said only one sentence, "Sign it." Mr. Stein laughed. "What is this?" he said. Ethan didn't answer. Derek opened the file, and his face was chalky. Because that folder didn't just contain stolen paycheck documents. It was everything about tax evasion, insurance fraud, employee abuse, and corruption. It was documented step by step, date by date. But the real bombshell was the group of investors Ethan had been secretly partnering with for the last 6 months. And those investors had made the decisions that morning that would sink the Stein family's business. At 10 SAR, Ethan went outside. Police cars stopped in the yard of the mansion. Then tax inspectors, occupational health officials, reporters. The head of security, who once wouldn't even look at Ethan, now gave him the go-ahead. Mr. Stein, who had once treated Ethan like a slave, was now handcuffed. The press was shouting outside. The cameras were flashing. But Ethan said nothing. He just sat next to the old lawnmower, his eyes staring off into the distance. April came up to him. She was holding a thermos. She handed him hot coffee. "They stole your 10 years, Ethan, but not your heart." Ethan smiled for the first time. "I never asked for money, April. I just wanted to be treated like a human being." If you're watching this story, maybe you're an Ethan. Maybe you too have been silent for years. Maybe you didn't have the strength to stand up for your rights. But remember, the deepest silences initiate the greatest transformations. If you have experienced such a story, write "I too was silent" in the comments. Like the video so that everyone can hear this justice. And subscribe so you don't miss these stories. Because as we speak, no Ethan will ever be in the dark again.